But for those of you that do use astrology to help people, my question to you is, how would you feel about using your astrological talents to help more people on a much bigger scale? Because that's certainly my aim. So today I'm going to share with you why astrology has fallen out of favour and how we can bring it back into favour so we can help more people on a bigger scale. And I'm going to do that by discussing three particular areas. So those three particular areas are, the first one is the difference between geocentric and heliocentric theories and how they played a part in astrology falling out of favour. The second one is the conflict between astrologers, scientists and the church. And then the third one is I'm going to talk about astrology today and how we can work together to bring astrology back into favour. And it's that section in particular where you really get the opportunity to share some of your personal stories, as I will be sharing some of my personal stories in that area. So now, before going through the content, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm here today. So I found myself at my first astrology course 18 years ago. As Cheryl mentioned, I've been practicing astrology for 18 years. And I found myself at this course really as an act of support for a new friendship. So my new friend, who I will call Tara, not her real name. So she had, long blonde hair, she drove a convertible and she was extremely unreliable. So I would find out the hard way. But before I found this out, she mentioned that she was about to start an astrology course the following week. And I didn't know whether she was teaching or participating, but I did know I was curious about the subject. And I ended up on this course not really understanding what I was going to learn, and it ended up being one of the best things I've ever done. Has that been a similar sort of case for you guys? You didn't really know what you were getting yourselves into and it's ended up being this really fantastic thing, or you kind of knew what you were getting into? Just happy for you to make some comments in the chat. So for me, it was my introduction into the world of astrology, and little did I know it was going to give me answers that I've been unable to get from anywhere else. From that moment on, all I wanted to do was learn more and more, and I was asking everyone I met for their birth charts and reading as many charts as I could get my hands on. Did you guys go through that sort of similar situation as well, that when you became involved in astrology, which is all about what are your birth details? Let me read your chart. So, yep. I've got someone here, I'm just looking at the chat. Someone's always wanted to know about astrology since childhood, and yeah, people definitely some yeses coming through there. So people refer to astrology as my passion, but I refer to it as my fascination. I am completely fascinated by it. And that fascination led me to create an astrology-inspired TV show called The Stars Behind the Stars. So The Stars Behind the Stars was a self-funded TV pilot that I shot about 8 years ago. And it was a tremendous learning curve, to say the least. I did try and shop it around, but it didn't progress and I ended up putting the project down. But as I was in the process of shopping it around, I actually came into SARS probably about 7 or so years ago, and I actually presented it at SARS. Now, along came my business coach, and I hired early last year to help me build a business from the ground up in the right way, because I didn't want to repeat past failures. And the new business was focused on my skills and knowledge as an instructional designer, which Cheryl mentioned earlier. That's how I earn my living. And an instructional designer, just for your information, designs learning experiences, or more simply put, we write training programs. The proposed business didn't include astrology. And at the end of my first business coaching session, I said to me the following words: I want you to write the business plan for the business that you want. It may not be the business that you think you want. In other words, write the business plan for the business that's in my heart and not in my head. And I spent the next week rewriting the draft business plan, and what came out of me was The Stars Behind the Stars. So it ultimately didn't go anywhere. It was just lying dormant for quite some time. So I'd been working on all these astrology-inspired projects privately for about 10 years, always too worried about being judged if I was to take them public. The Stars Behind the Stars was the only project I'd made public in that time. But to move forward with any of these projects, I needed to get past that fear of being judged about being an astrologer. And that fear is based on astrology not being understood as a result of it falling out of favour. And I don't want to be embarrassed anymore about what I do. I want to stand in my truth and share my gifts with other people, and I want to be honest about what I'm doing. So, does anyone else feel embarrassed when admitting they're an astrologer? Do you also fear judgment because it's a subject that's not understood? Can you guys give me some feedback in the chat around that? There we go. There's a few people here saying not embarrassed. So I'm very impressed. I'm really happy for you guys. Other people, they don't advertise it. And yes, yes, it's like everything that is misunderstood. It gets judged, stigmatized. People are afraid of it. I always felt that it was their problem if they didn't appreciate astrology. And it is, I agree, Michelle, it is their problem, but it becomes our problem, unfortunately. It's a challenging one. So, but anyway, we've got some mixed feedback there, which is interesting, but I'm impressed by those of you who do not feel embarrassed, because I have not made that leap yet. It's something I'm struggling with. And I probably really shouldn't feel embarrassed, considering the fact that there's several famous historical figures that were also astrologers. And these people have been major contributors to the world that we live in. They're all recognizable names, and their credibility has remained over the years, if not centuries, but not that of astrology. They've shown us what is possible, though. I think we have the same ability to make a major contribution to the world that we live in today, especially in consideration of the desperate times that we're currently facing. So we have the skills and knowledge to help people individually and collectively to find their way in what is essentially a new world. But to do that, we need to bring some public credibility back to astrology. And understanding why astrology fell out of favour and what we can do to bring it back into favour will help with this. And I just want to clarify what I mean about astrology falling out of favour. And that is that it's not as accepted or understood or appreciated or used like it once was. Therefore, it's fallen out of favour. So, but I think it can be appreciated and used like it once was all over again. So let's move into the content and begin to understand why astrology fell out of favour in the first place.